When you say special forces, what does that mean? What distinguishes special forces from any other?
Well, we're special, obviously.
So eventually you would find yourself part of something called Operation Eagle Claw, correct?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, as I said, I went back to Special Forces and went actually to the Special Forces. Well, I went back to 5th Group, and the colors had just returned from Vietnam. Then I went to the Special Forces School and had the Military Free Fall Committee, the HALO Committee. Wasn't a very good skydiver, so I left there and went to, I broke my back twice, and went to the Operations and Intelligence course, and was a faculty advisor for the officers and a guerrilla chief on the unconventional warfare exercise Robin Sage to have at the end. And Colonel Charlie Beckwith, who had done an exchange with the British Special Air Service, had always wanted to have that sort of unit within the U.S. Army.
Right.
Well, he was the director of the Special Forces School by this time. And in 1977, when he had his staff do some work on this proposal that he couldn't get it past, the mid-level generals, basically. And then there was an aircraft hijacked to Mogadishu, Somalia in 77, a Lufthansa aircraft, and GSG-9, the German counter-terrorist unit, with help from two British SAS, took the airplane back, released all the hostages, and shot all the terrorists. One of them they didn't kill, but she was in the latrine, so that's okay. But anyway, apparently President Carter turned to his SecDef, Dr. Brown, and said, "We have this capability, don't we?" And Brown says, I'll ask the chiefs. So he goes to the chiefs of staff, and the Marine Corps said, well, of course, any Marine rifle company can do that.
Right.
And the Navy said, well, we have SEALs, but they operate, on the shoreline. And the Air Force says, we don't do that, but we can sure support it.
Right.
And the Army says, well, we've reactivated a Ranger battalion. So, but that was the opportunity, and General Scheimeyer was the Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations of the Army at the time, and he pushed this paperwork through, and on 19 November 77, they got authority to activate it. Well, I was by this time 34, 35 years old, and Beckwith had sent a couple of guys to Britain to do the SAS course, and they didn't really do too well. I said, hey, Colonel, I can do this course, He said, number one, you're too old, I said, well, you never know if you don't send me. Right. So he did. And I managed to struggle through, and as a result, I was one of the first 2 officers he took with him to form what became known as the Delta Force. So it was a pretty good experience.
So you're a founding member?
No, there's only one founding member of the Delta Force, and that's Charlie Alvin Beckwith.
Okay.
But I happened to be there when he founded it.
Okay. But you were.
I was there from day one, and for the next 9 years.
Okay.
And I'm fortunate enough to command the first operational element for a couple of years.
What is their primary mission?
I ain't telling you. It's to perform missions for the National Command Authority.
Right.
That's all. Next question.
So Operation Eagle Claw.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Actually, 40 years ago, right about now,
yeah.
is when we were gearing up to try to do something. We didn't know what we could do. I mean, the Air Force couldn't get us there. Well, first, President Carter wanted to do everything taken off from the continental U.S. and returning without setting foot on foreign soil, and that's logistically impossible, unless you'd gone in nuclear subs and had fold-up helicopters and flown into the embassy. They didn't have that stuff in those days, except in the movies.
Right.
So it was a very, and we didn't know whether they were going to start killing hostages the next day or one at a time, one a day, and throwing them over the wall, what they're going to do. So we had to have two plans, an emergency plan. What would we do if they did start misbehaving like that?
Right.
And the other plan is, if we have time to do some planning, what assets can we collect and what training can we do to prepare for it? But we always thought it would be within 10 days. You know, we never had the luxury of thinking, okay, by 3 months from now we can get this accomplished, or this training accomplished, or this support laid on. So anyway, to make a long story long, it was a very complicated plan, and Beckwith knew that we were ready. I mean, we had trained for 18 months. We had undergone a national level assessment with an exercise with the unit,
right,
doing 2 targets simultaneously, and did that successfully. And had British special force. I've had several foreign, special forces observers, all of whom said, yeah, they're ready to go. The Air Force, when it first started, training safety had precluded the MC-130s, the combat Talons, from doing night blacked out landings on dirt strips. I mean, that was just something to save the aircraft, because, you know, there was no U.S. Special Operations Command then.
right.
So the Special Operations Forces were competing with their services money,
right,
to get what they thought they needed, and a lot of times it was short shrift. You know, the Army would say, well, we need another Special Forces group, and the big Army would say, no, we need another dozen Abrams tanks. So you forget that. And same thing with the other services.
Yeah.
So we had, the Air Force very quickly trained up. I mean, they went things to the wall to get the training accomplished, and did some amazing things with NVGs and night blacked out landings, and
right,
you know, they did an amazing job. There were no long range helicopters capable of doing the operation, except in those days the H-53s. The RH-53 is a Navy minesweeping helicopter that the tail boom folds on, so they can put it on an elevator and take it below deck, so that the Nimitz could steam towards Iran, and the Russians are still in Afghanistan, remember. The Russian recon aircraft wouldn't see 8 helicopters on the deck, you know,
right,
and let the Iranians know, hey, guess who's heading your way with 8 choppers, you know. So that's why we had to use them, but it's not the machines, it's the man, you know. There's a certain mentality,
right,
that you have to have to do that sort of work, and I honestly think that we forced these guys, I'm being kind now, I think we forced these guys who didn't have that mentality, and who I really think did not think until they hit the coast of Iran that this mission was ever actually going to go. You know, we used them, and it didn't work. We can blame it on dust storms, we can blame it on a lot of things, but the point is it didn't work. The bad news is that we lost 8 great airmen, Air Force and Marine Corps, 5 airmen, 3 Marines. But what really did come from it eventually was the formation of I guess JSOC is pretty well known now, the Joint Special Operations Command, to coordinate the operations of all the Special Operations Forces. But really the biggest thing was a thing called MFP 11, Major Funding Program 11, which was their own money for Special Operations Forces. And of course, in order to have that, you have to have somebody holding the purse, and so the U.S. Special Operations Command was founded. And no longer do we have to compete with Abrams tanks when we needed something.
Yeah.
In fact, we got a little spoiled, to tell you the truth. But it was very good until it like all headquarters. You know, the military is accused frequently of throwing money at problems. We don't do that.
right.
we throw headquarters at problems. And then another headquarters is eventually become just another layer you have to go through to get the job done. And I think that's what we may be seeing now.
Is that a mission that most likely today is a success?
An Eagle Claw type mission?
An Eagle Claw type
Oh,
mission.
yeah,
Is that a
yeah.
successful mission today?
Yeah, you look at, and a lot of them are still classified, of course,
Right.
but al-Baghdadi,
Right.
you know, and even though the SEALs did it, Bin Laden, and a number of other things that
Right.
many of which aren't in the public domain. Yeah, these guys are so well trained, equipped, and so well coordinated among the various services, and they all have selection courses. I mean, they all followed that Delta, that precedent that the Delta Force set, I think. And yeah, they can do amazing things. I mean, they go so far beyond what we had envisioned when Beckwith stood this outfit up that that's just amazing. People used to ask me, what is that outfit? And when you boil it down to its essence, it's really simply the finest collection of non-commissioned officers ever assembled on the face of the earth, and I really believe that.
Yeah.
And they get better all the time. They can do anything. You could tell them, you could take one of their operational elements and say, okay, guys, next week you're going to be an artillery battery, and they'd say, well, give us the guns and the manuals, we'll be there, and they would,